Christian life, first of all, let's just start out saying this. It's clear that the Christian life is not a solo act. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. You can't be on an island. You can't be a Christian and be by yourself in any way. And I've had conversations with people. I remember early in my ministry at that church that I said that we started out, it was at First Baptist Church of Brooklyn, Mississippi. If you've ever been to Brooklyn, Mississippi, there's not much there. Like there's cow fields. When we were there was a post office that was open part-time, post office, and there was a gas station on the highway, Highway 49. There was a family that had an alligator on a running chain in their front yard. His name was Chopper, and there's not a whole lot that happened in Brooklyn, Mississippi. Not a whole lot at all. When we started there, I didn't really know what I was doing, and I was trying to interact with some people in the neighborhood. And I remember it was the first time as a minister of a church going to somebody and say, hey, why don't you come see us at church? And the guy, I remember, I'll never forget it. He said, look, I love God. I know God. I read the Bible. I have a relationship with God, but I don't need church. I don't need to be around people. I don't need to show up and like spruce up and get there and meet together and do their thing with other people. I just do my thing with God. And I'm good with that. Actually, it works better for me. And I guess because I was young, I was just like, okay, have a nice day. Like I didn't really wasn't brave enough or smart enough to interact with that. But look, the Christian life is not a solo act. Like you can't be alone. It's a team sport. Rowing a boat, if you have a lot of other rowers, you have to be in tune. And I don't know if they have like a cadence. I don't know, Coach, maybe we can get a rowing team started up somewhere. You have to be in tune with one another. If there's 3 people or 4 people rowing, racing, and 2 of them just decide, just to let go and like stretch a little bit and be like, hey guys, go ahead, I'm going to take a nap a little bit. They're going to be like, no, you can't stop rowing. You can't quit. Like we have a race that we're trying to cross the finish line. Like we got a destination. And we need everybody on the boat to do everything they can to row the boat. I've played in several bands, growing up and doing music. Some were a little bit more intense as far as like more heavies, rock type stuff. But what I've noticed about anytime you play with a group of people, like everybody's you gotta have like that chemistry. You gotta have people like if Kimo was up here and he said, all right, so the next song is Cornerstone, but he decided to, it's not still on. And he decided to start playing some other song. Like let's say we start singing Cornerstone and Kimo's like, all right, I'm gonna do Happy Birthday. Dun, 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 dun. It would just make a mess, right? It would be terrible. Everybody kind of you got to be in tune. You got to be in step. You got to be in key. Like one of the things that I do is I step on this little box over here that tunes my guitar. If my guitar is way out of tune, if this thing, which is always going to be in tune because it's electronic, digital, but this isn't. I have to tune. If it's way out of tune and Raquel's singing other lyrics to another song and I'm playing something else, like you're going to hate it, and we're going to hate it. It's going to be terrible. We have to be together. We have to look at the same page. We got to be going in the same direction. We got to be going the same tempo. We got to be rowing the same boat in the same direction. And that's the same way with church. We all got to be together on the same page, and everybody's got to be there. Everybody's got to contribute. Everybody needs to be rowing the boat. And so I don't want tonight to feel like I'm, like jumping on anybody if you're not here, or if you have to miss sometimes for various reasons like work or family. Like, I get that. That's part of life. I totally understand that. But here's what I also know about everybody that when they miss here, for the most part, everybody, you kind of have that little knot, right? You're like, oh, I got to miss, but I want to be there, and I can't be there. I can't be at 2 places at once. So we know that. We know that when it's a solo act, if you mess up, everybody notices. And it's a disaster, right? I know everybody likes the America's Got Talent, American Idol, that kind of thing, but when that person is standing on that stage by themselves, I don't like those shows. And I know sometimes it's inspirational and they get up on the stage and they walk out there and they find that little X they have to stand on and everybody's looking at them. It is a giant stage and they're up there by themselves. And you've seen some of it where they just make a mess of things up there. And they think they're okay, and they're bad, and everybody's they pans over to the crowd, and there's like a lady going, making like, she just like, her face is all contorted up. And then next to her, somebody's laughing. And the judges are like, okay. You ever been to a sporting event? I get nervous when everybody's quiet and it's somebody's turn to sing the national anthem. Like, I don't mind singing in here with you guys, with my guitar and some friends up here, but I've never been asked to sing the national anthem. And probably with all my heart, I'll decline. And I might say it just like that. Hey, we got an event coming up. Will you sing the national anthem? I might look at them and say, with all of my heart, no. I just can't. The whole standing up, that's just not me. The solo thing, I can't do it. When we were at that church in Brooklyn, Mississippi, we had like this choir special thing, and they're like, hey, Rod and Angela, they actually call her Nikki there. So Rod and Nikki, they're here. Let's have them in the choir. And yeah, you should call her Nikki tonight. See what she says. Really, do it. Like, her whole family calls her Nikki, and everybody in Brooklyn, Mississippi calls her Nikki. It's weird. Nikki's like a dog name, right? Come here, Nikki. I never could get the whole Nikki thing. But anyway, so we have this choir special, and I have a solo and I'm like, okay, I know this song pretty well. And it's time to perform. I'm joking around through practice because that's how that's my like coping mechanism, laughter and being funny. And so I do that the whole time we practice it, but then it comes time to like the performance, and it's the part of the song, and everybody kind of steps back, and they know that it's my turn to sing a solo, and I'm just like, nothing happened. Like, I can't do the solo thing. So don't volunteer me to sing the national anthem. It just won't work. So the same way with the Christian life. It's the same way in matters of faith. We can't be a solo act. You can't say to somebody, yeah, well, I don't really do the church thing, but I like God. I mean, he's cool. Jesus is my homeboy. Like, I like Jesus and things like that, but I don't do the church thing. In fact, when you look at the Bible in the New Testament, if you were to gather up all the New Testament believers, and if I were to take like a handful of New Testament believers in the book of Acts, and they were to walk around Brooklyn, Mississippi with me, and I'm not saying all the Christians in Brooklyn are like that, but I'm saying if they went with me to that guy's house, and that guy's like, hey man, I like God, I like Jesus and stuff like that, but I don't dig the church. That's not my thing. They would be just blown away. They'd be like, what are you talking about? You like can't do one and not the other. You can't have it like that. It doesn't work. So we have to understand that it's not a solo act. We also understand just because it's not a solo act, every member contributes. Like everybody that is involved in a church, like you really matter a lot. And you being here as much as you can is super important. In fact, it's critical. Because even just emotionally and mentally and spiritually, people around you rely on each other. Like somebody is relying on somebody else in here, regardless of whether or not it's your turn to put up or take down signs or help with the kids or cook hot dogs or something like that. Regardless of whether or not you have some kind of duty or chore on some kind of roster, that's beside the point. In fact, I would submit to you that in the early church, they knew that, okay, it's about that time to get together. They didn't have a clock that were counting down. I was up here talking to Raquel. My phone is back there, and I'm like, what time is it? She's like, it's 4:28, okay? And then, like, I guess like 15 seconds later, I was like, hey, what time is it? She's like, it's still 4:28. I'm like, okay. And then I was like, what you got now? 4:29? Let me know when it's 4:30. Like that kind of thing. Like that's an American culture thing. I don't know if you knew that. So let's just, like if we were in the New Testament church, it'd be like, hey, it's about that time. It's about time for us all to get together. And we're like looking around like, all right, I think everybody's here. There's some new faces here. Yeah, come on. Like how long does this thing last? We don't know. We're going to get together. That's one of the things that I like about like Central South American culture is, so our culture is an event time where there's a start, there's a finish, and you got to get out on time. If you go too long, people are like, wiggling, like, hey man, it's like I don't know if it's a crock pot thing or if it's a football start kickoff thing or what, but I love going to church in other cultures. I love it. In fact, I was talking to somebody who just got back from the Dominican Republic, and they were working with one of the pastors down there that's a friend of mine, and I remember going to his church. And their service starts at 7 o'clock on Sunday evening, and I think they just decided to change it the week before just because why not? And so it's like 7:15, and they say they start at 7, and the pastor's not there. In fact, most of the organisms that are alive in the church are like chickens. There's like 3 chickens and a dog in the church at 7:15 when they say they start at 7. And they're all out like kicking like rocks around, laughing and eating fruit and stuff like that. And they're like, okay, I guess we'll mosey on in here and get started. Yeah, sure, let's do that. And then they sing for an hour and a half. And then they're looking around like, does anybody else got anything to sing? And we're not like that. We're like, hey, you got to have your start time. You got to have like your lineup and an order and tell me when to do this, and is it my turn? It's 4:30 right now. Okay, now we'll start. Like, it drives me crazy, but we're like that. But the church is different all over the world. But the key point that we're making tonight is that every member contributes. So the first thing, when we say every member contributes, the first thing I want you to put down, so point number 1 when we talk about every member contributes. We're in Acts tonight, Acts chapter 4. We'll be bouncing around a little bit. Number 1 is they're all looking in. They're all looking in, okay? So I'm going to use this kind of terminology tonight. So when you think of everybody in the book of Acts, as far as all these church members, when I say they're all looking in, let's look at this verse and let's unpack it a little bit. So in verse 23, Acts chapter 4, said when they were released. Okay, so let me back up a little bit and tell you what's happening here. So Peter and John have just been teaching and preaching, and like the elders and the rulers, the Jerusalem council people, they like brought them in, and they're like, okay, so there's a new thing happening, we can tell, because like 3,000 people in the community just decided to become one of the followers of the way. They didn't really have the term Christian yet. They didn't know what to call them yet. So they're like, well, 3,000 people in the community just became followers of Christ, and like, we don't really know what to think about you guys yet. And so what they did is they brought Peter and John, and they said, okay, so here's the thing. Y'all can't talk about Jesus anymore in the community. You can't do that. Like, you're done talking about that. And they threatened them. They told them, hey, it's going to be really bad if you keep that up. And they're basically like, hey, if we obey man or God, And so then they come back. So it says when they were released, so that's Peter and John, when they were threatened, they went to their friends and reported what the chief priests and the elders said to them. So when I say every member contributes, and I say they're all looking in, so here's what happened. So the whole church, everybody that was saying they're a new follower of Christ, they all knew that Peter and John, hey, they got like arrested. And so all these friends, it says, and they went back to their friends, so they're all waiting to hear. They're all looking in. They all know what's going on with the church. They all know that, hey, our two top dog leaders, hey, they're in trouble right now. So everybody knows what's happening. So looking in, so in the church, if we say that everybody contributes, everybody needs to be looking in. That means looking in requires attention. It requires attention. And what I mean by that is, you ever been somewhere and somebody shows up, and I feel like it's like kind of that guy that just kind of is always on another planet, and he's like eating something, he's like, and everybody's looking serious, and he's like, what I miss? And they all look at him like, what I miss? Like, there shouldn't be a lot of that in the church. There shouldn't be times where, maybe God's doing a work and doing something in the church, and then you kind of bebop on in later on and like eating an apple, and you're like, hey, wait a second, what I miss? Like, you want to be looking in and paying attention to what's going on with the church, and something happens, you're like, look at that. And if somebody else is like on the fringe a little bit, they're the ones that should be like, well, what happened? What I missed something. What I miss? Like, you don't ever want to miss anything. You don't ever want to have that kind of pattern in your life where you're kind of bouncing in and out, your ebb and flow a little bit, and your like connection and your commitment, because you don't want to miss anything. Even if it's something tonight. Like last week, if you were here last week, we talked about a couple things. We talked about some things the week before. Like, you don't want to bebop in here and be like, what I missed, man? I was out for a few weeks. Like, I'm not saying, like, I'm not getting on to you if you like just have to go somewhere. I get that. But you should have that kind of lump where you're like, I don't want to go anywhere because I don't want to miss out anything, because like I'm like always checking in, what's happening here? What am I missing? What am I missing? So you have to have that attention. You have to commit to yourself that, look, it's important for me to always be paying attention to what's happening with my church. If somebody's sick, if something great's going on here, like I don't want to hear later on, well, man, how did I miss that? Because I want to be paying attention. Looking in requires attention. Looking in requires allegiance. You want to have allegiance to the church. If you're a member of a church, if you're committed to a church, like you want to say, that's my church. Those are my leaders. That's my mission. That's what matters the most to me. That's part of who I am. See, here's what happens in our culture and it was not that way in the book of Acts. So in our culture, church things are just what people do. That's what I do. I go to church. I do the church thing sometimes. Yeah, we do the church thing. But in the book of Acts, the people who came to faith in Christ, church was not something they did. It wasn't something they did. It was who they are. Like, it was their identity. They went from, I was one person before, now I'm a follower of Christ. Now I'm a member of the body of Christ, the global faith community. It's who I am. And so just me paying attention, my allegiance, and me looking in, knowing what's going on, it's not because I'm just super fanatical committed to something out here we call the church. That's just who I am. It's my identity. So looking in requires allegiance. Allegiance to the church, to the mission, to the leaders. Number two. So number one, they were looking in. They were paying attention. They were giving their allegiance. Number two, they're all looking up. So yeah, they're all paying attention. They're all looking in, but they're also all looking up. Let's look at this in verse 24. So Peter and John are released. They were threatened. They said, can't do that. They went back to their friends and reported what the chief priest and the elders said to them. Not elders like we talked about last week, but like elders of the Jewish community. And so now that they reported that back, here's what happened. And when they heard it, so when everybody heard it, so they heard that Peter and John, hey, they almost like hurt y'all, right? Yeah, it was kind of scary, man. They threatened us. And when the leaders threaten you in that day, like, look, it's not an empty threat. So when they heard it, they lifted their voices to God and said, Sovereign Lord, who made the heavens and the earth and the sea and everything in it. That was their response. That was their natural response. And it was their response to anything that happened. Anything. Stephen in Acts chapter 7, he's about to get stoned to death. And his response, he looks up and he sees Jesus. And they stone him to death and he says, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Like, it's the natural response of people who are connected deeply to the church to have this sense of whatever comes your way, just to look up. So we look in, we're paying attention, we're looking in to each other, and we know what's going on, but then we look up. So they looked up and said, Sovereign Lord, who made the heavens and the earth and the sea and everything in them, who through the mouth of our father David, your servant, said by the Holy Spirit, why did the Gentiles rage and the people plot in vain? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers were gathered together against the Lord and against his anointed. For truly in this city they were gathered together against your holy servant Jesus, whom you appointed, or whom you anointed, both Herod and Pontius Pilate, along with the Gentiles and the peoples of Israel, to do whatever your hand and your plan had predestined to take place. The Bible does talk about predestination a lot. It's there. The word predestination actually means predestination. And so here's what happened. They understood and they embraced the sovereignty of God. That's part of them looking up. That whatever happened, look, it's really bad when your key leaders all get arrested. You're a brand new church, and you're a big group, and all of your leaders get arrested, and all the rulers say, hey, zip it. Not another word about this Jesus thing. Y'all are getting a little out of control. It's going to be real bad for you if you keep going. And so they go back, and they report, hey, they wanted to hurt us. They wanted to put us down. And then they look up, and they rejoice and said, look, they started praying. They started exalting the sovereignty of God. They said, God, you knew what was going to take place. By the mouth of David, the Gentiles are going to rage and the kings of the earth. And then he says, whatever is going to happen is going to happen. It's going to take place because of what your hand had predestined to take place. And so what you see with them looking up, and here's what looking up requires. Looking up requires awe. It just requires awe. Did you see that? You see what they had? They just had awe of God's plan, God's purpose, God's sovereignty. They weren't just like, wow, Peter and John, that's interesting. I guess it's going to be rough if it happens again, huh? That's not what they were doing. Man, you see them looking up. Looking up requires awe. I'm going to zip through some verses here real quick. Psalm 33:8. Let all the earth fear the Lord. Let all the inhabitants of the world stand in awe of him. How does your awe look? You got a good awe lately? Are you standing in awe of the Lord lately? Are you mesmerized, captivated, just taken back at the beauty and the majesty and the greatness and the grandeur of your God? Are you in awe? Hebrews 12. Therefore, let us be grateful for receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken. And thus let us offer to God acceptable worship with reverence and awe. For our God is a consuming fire. When I was first doing youth ministry, we put together a shirt, and it was really corny. And it had this guy with his head on fire. It was bad. And it said Hebrews, it said that verse, and it said, our God is a consuming fire on the back. It was a really bad shirt. It was funny. And I remember being somewhere, and a guy looked at it, and he's like, that sounds dangerous. And I thought, after that, I'm like, I don't think I'm ever going to wear that shirt again. Look, our God is a consuming fire. If something is a consuming fire, you step back a little bit, and you're like, man, look at that. That thing is a consuming fire. I'm in awe at what happens with a consuming fire. Our God is great and mighty. All these things, Isaiah 66:2, all these things my hand has made so that these things came to be, declares the Lord. But this is the one to whom I look, he who is humble to contrite in spirit and trembles at my word. Trembles at the word of God. If you tremble at God's word, you're in awe of it. Revelation 4:11, worthy are you, O Lord and God, to receive glory and honor and power, for you created all things, and by your will they existed and were created. God, you know why everything was created? Because God made up his mind and did that. He decided to do that. God does everything he wanted to, and he gets his way every single time. We should be in awe of that. They knew that. The first century church, those people there in 80, 20, whatever, 30, 60 or whatever, they're in awe of the sovereignty of God. They knew these verses. They knew the word. They understood this. Luke 7:16, fear seized them all, and they glorified God, saying, a great prophet has risen among us, and God has visited his people. Why are people saying that? Why did great fear seize them? Because Jesus literally, physically raised someone from the dead. If you're in a position, if you're in a place and people are mourning because a child is dead, and someone shows up and says, let's reverse this death right here. There's going to be people running out, taking off, hopping in their car, speeding off. It's terrifying. They had awe to come upon them. Deuteronomy 10:17, for the Lord our God is God of gods and Lord of lords, the great, the mighty, and awesome God. You should add that verse right there to your prayer tonight. God, you are the Lord. You are God. You are God of gods. You are Lord of lords, the great, the mighty, and awesome God. Amen. Man, because awe comes upon you. They had this awe. If you don't have this awe in your life, you're not going to look up. Things are going to happen. Something's going to shatter in your life, and you're going to look down. Something's going to be great. You're going to get a promotion. You're going to get a raise. You're going to find $100 in the ditch. You're going to, somebody's going to call you up and say, hey, I'm your long-lost uncle, and I just won the lottery, and I don't want it. You can have it. If that happens, something fantastic or something terrible, whatever, good or bad, if you have awe of God, then anything that happens, you just look up. You just, wow. Jeremiah 33:9. And this city shall be to me a name of joy, a praise, a glory before all the nations of the earth. Who shall hear of all the good that I do for them? They shall fear and tremble because of all the good and all the prosperity I will provide for it. Psalm 68:35. Awesome is God from his sanctuary, the God of Israel. He is the one who gives power and strength to his people. Blessed be God. Exodus 15:11. Who is like you, O Lord, among the gods? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in glorious deeds, doing wonders? I feel like sometimes people are just kind of trying to grab words. These big words, great words, and try to put them together, and it's like, man, we're going to try, but this doesn't really fit for how awesome God is. But let's put a bunch of words together. Let's create words. Because we got to express somehow how we look up and rejoice and exalt in how awesome God is. So they They were looking in, but they were looking up. Looking up requires awe, and looking up requires trust. You can understand and embrace and talk about the sovereignty of God and how his hand predestined to whatever takes place because of what he predestined to happen. You can be all in tune with that. But if you don't trust a holy, sovereign God, you don't trust him with your life, then you've missed it. So how do you know if you're trusting God? I think trusting God is a place and trusting God is a practice. If you trust God as your Savior, if you trust him continually as your Lord, that's the place that you're in. It's a position of salvation. When you got saved, he took you from a position of being, the Bible says you were blind to the truth. The devil blinded the minds of unbelievers. You were dead in your sins and trespasses. You were an enemy of God. You didn't seek God. You didn't want God. And then he took you from that place to another place. So salvation, trusting God, is about a place, but it's also about a practice. It's also about the progress of growing in that. So you say, I trust God. The question for you tonight, do you trust God? Well, trusting God is about a position you're in now through the work of the gospel of salvation in your life, but it's also about a process, progress, growing in that. So we say, I trust Jesus as my Savior, and I'm trusting him to continually work out the process of salvation in my life, right? Because it's a position, and then it's a practice. So they trusted God. They were in awe of God as they looked up, as they looked in, as they knew that, hey, this is important for us to be in tune with what's happening. Number 3, they're all looking ahead. So they're all looking in, they're all looking up, but they're also all looking ahead. They're all looking ahead. And now, Lord, look upon their threats and grant to your servants to continue to speak your word with boldness. So you see what they're doing here. They understand how critical it is for them in this moment of like, okay, so we know that God has put us together as a faith people to praise God, to look up, but also know that he's got us on a task. He's got us on a mission. And now we're seeing they're flanking us. Like they're trying to stop us from every end. They're saying, hey, it's going to be real bad if you keep this up. And so what do? They ask for boldness. And now, Lord, look upon these threats and grant your servants. We're not going to stop, God. We're going to fire it up. We're going to crank it up. We're going to throw more heat on the fire, more fuel to the fire, God, but we need your help. We need your boldness because we're looking ahead at what you're calling us to do. We want to drive ahead to the mission, to the task that you've put before us. Grant us boldness to continue to speak your word. While you stretch out your hand to heal and signs and wonders are performed through the name of your holy servant Jesus. And when they had prayed, the place in which they were gathered together was shaken. It's almost like God said, amen. I'm with you on that. They're going to try to rattle you to pieces, but just so you know, I can shake things up too. And all were filled with the Holy Spirit. And they continued to speak the word of God with boldness. So looking ahead is the responsibility of the church. It has been for thousands of years. Seeing what God has called you to and looking ahead at where you're going with your faith, where your church is going, the process of seeing more people hearing about Jesus, coming to faith all over the world. That's the task that God gave to his people. That's why we say we want to be focused. We want to have that simple connection to Jesus through the gospel, and that gospel connection that we have through the gospel, through Jesus dying for us, connects us together with one another in family, a family of faith, but then we're focused. We're focused on what he's called us to be focused on. We have a reason that we're here, that we meet together, that we're together in this place, that we glorify God in everything, and one of the main things we do is advance the kingdom in all boldness, regardless of what comes our way. So looking ahead requires focus. Looking ahead requires boldness. Let's look at some of these passages real quick. Have I not commanded you? This is Joshua 1:9. Be strong and courageous. Do not be frightened. Do not be dismayed. The Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Deuteronomy 31:6. Be strong and courageous. Do not fear or be in dread of them, for it is the Lord your God who goes with you. He will not leave you or forsake you. 2 Timothy 1:7. For God gave us not, he didn't give us a spirit of fear, but of power and love and self-control. 1 Corinthians 16:13. Be watchful. I love this. Stand firm in the faith. Act like men. This is Paul talking to the church in Corinth. Be strong. Look, we got a mission. We got a message, and we're plowing ahead with it. And people want to kill us for it. They want to stop us for it. Stand your ground. Be strong. Stand firm. Act like men. Psalm 27:14. Wait for the Lord. Be strong. Let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord. Looking ahead requires boldness. Looking ahead is just you focusing on advancing the kingdom with courage. That's what it's about. And they knew that. They got that. How do we know that the church in Acts got that? Because you are here right now. It blew up. They turned the world upside down. So they're looking ahead. Number 4, they're looking around. They're looking around. Now, looking in, they know what's happening in the church. But as they're looking around, they're also looking around at each other. Verse 32, now the full number of those who believed were one heart, one soul. No one said that any of these things belonged to him, was his own, but they had everything in common. And with great power, the apostles were giving their testimony to the resurrection of the Lord Jesus, and great grace was upon them all. There was not a needy person among them, for as many as were owners of lands or houses sold them and brought the proceeds of what was sold, and they laid it at the apostles' feet. And it was distributed to each as any had need. Thus Joseph, who was called by the apostles Barnabas, which also means son of encouragement, a Levite, a native of Cyprus, sold a field. This is very just kind of random, it seems like. He sold a field that belonged to him, and he brought all the money and laid it at the apostles' feet. So here's what happened. I'm not saying that to be a healthy church today, everybody has to sell all their stuff and like move in together. It would be really weird. And everybody would look at us and be like, that's a cult right there. Next thing you know, there's going to be some fires happening, the place is going to burn down, and FBI is going to be all over the place. That's what they did. But we have to take this concept of, look, of this generosity that spurs on you, like looking around and like, see, who's hurting? Who needs for you to pray for them, to talk to them, to care for them, to walk with them? Like, what's happening here? And so when you're looking in, like you paying attention to what's happening with the message and the leaders and things like that, when you're looking around, you're also kind of like, wait a minute, like, how's it going? Like, what? Like, so they're seeing what's happening with each other. They're looking around. They're paying attention to that. And that's one of the best parts of all of this. I really feel like if they didn't have this concept of, if they were just like all just super driven and super focused on the mission and they didn't have this part, I don't think it would have worked. Because people would have got tired, especially when the persecution heated up and people are literally being killed for the advancement of the kingdom. And people are like they're just, all right, we got to keep pushing forward, keep pressing on the advancement of the kingdom. That's, hey, well, I gotta slow down just a little bit because, I have like a whole family member that their whole family, they're all dead because of this. No, keep pressing in, keep pressing forward. Like, we'll think about them later. You know what I mean? Like if they're just super, just crazy, blinded up, but if they didn't look around at what was going on with each other, then they wouldn't have made it. I'm convinced they wouldn't have made it. God gives us so many passages in the Bible that tell us to love one another. There's a lot of one another passages. Like just love one another, serve one another, pray for one another, care for one another, give to one another, be patient with one another, honor one another, don't pass judgment on one another, instruct one another, greet one another warmly. The Bible passage says greet one another with a kiss. Nobody's kissing me. Nobody's kissing Bradley, I promise you. Except maybe his wife and kids, right? We're not going to have a holy kiss time around here. We don't have to. We can still greet each other warmly. Maybe today there's just a rub a fist bump in, right? It's a warm greeting. So many one another statements in the Bible. Agree with one another. Be kind to one another. Give compassion to one another. Sing with one another. Forgive one another. Don't slander one another. Be humble towards one another. Carry one another's burdens. Don't complain against one another. And there's all kinds of one another's. And God knew that that's what this was about. This advancement of the kingdom, or churches coming together and like being a part of pursuing God and his mission and being in awe of that. He knew that, hey, you got to look around. You got to see you got to know the heartbeat of people next to you, and you got to understand where they're hurting, and you can pick them up, and you can encourage them on, and you can slow them down, and you can rein them in a little bit. Like, we need all that. We're paying attention to what's going on around us. So looking around and noticing, it requires love, but it also requires generosity. Do we have that? Do we still have slides tonight? Yeah, there we go. So looking around requires love. Looking around requires generosity. A little bit of generosity happened in this passage, don't you think? A little bit of radical generosity, right? People selling stuff, been in their family for years. You just walked right up and said, this is what I got. Boop, I'm giving it to the church. Yikes. Scary. Wouldn't do that. I'll kind of do something, but not that. I'm not saying you got to do that. I'm not saying that you got to cash out your retirement and put it in the black box up here, a bucket, or whatever we call that. I don't want you to do that. I want you to be smart with your money. But I do want everybody to be accused of being a generous person. You do want to be that person that when somebody talks about you, they're just like, man, they're just, and people say stuff like, they just give you the shirt right off your back, Have you ever had one of that person's shirts? Nope, never had their shirt, but they're just like that, They'll stop what they're doing in their day and talk to you. That's kind of generous, don't you think, in our culture that's just breakneck speed, insanely busy with everything? How generous are you with time? When was the last time? Just a question. When was the last time generosity moved you and you did something, you're just like, I don't know, maybe somebody close to me might be like, wait a minute, like, that's a little much, don't you think? I think that's the kind of generosity that actually God wants from us. The type that somebody around us is going to be like, that's a little much, don't you think? Like the people that you have in your life that are always like, well, did you think that through? Like, I think that's the kind of faith-filled, riskful generosity that honors God. And when somebody steps generously into something, they're like, I did this because God called me to. And they're like, oh, no. Why'd you do that, man? Like, that could have been... Well, if God's calling you to do it, then you need to do it. When's the last time you took a prayerful risk? So let's pull this together. Every healthy church is full of people, members. And they're all people that should be looking in, looking up, looking ahead, and looking around and paying attention. This is all part of what we do, and we do this together because we're connected to each other through the work of Christ. So if you're a Christian, if you're a believer, especially if you're a believer and you think that you're a part of our faith family at Harbor City Church, are you looking in and really tuned in to what's going on in the heartbeat of our church? Are you looking up in awe and wonder, worship, just at how great God is? Are you looking ahead with faith and courage that burns just with white-hot purpose, advancing the kingdom? And I think there's a lot that we can spur each other on with this. Because I think that, through whatever reason, maybe just pandemic related, that we just kind of, a lot of people that are faith-filled, we just kind of start slowing down a little bit. We don't burn with the purpose of advancing the kingdom like we should. We don't see our outing like we probably should see our outing. When we run an errand, there could be, you could wrap a little bit more purpose in that errand that you ran. God puts you at Walgreens the same time He puts somebody else at Walgreens with you. Are you there is just some random happenstance that the person is standing next to you looking at the same stuff? Or is there maybe a little more to that? Are we pursuing and pressing towards the advancement of the kingdom? Are you looking around with a faith-filled, generous heart? And so if you're not a Christian, think that a non-Christian should hear this and look in at what's happening with God's church and God's people, and you should see how awesome it is to be a part of something like this. That's what I think somebody who doesn't believe or is not a believer, and if they look and they see what's happening here, they should look in that and be like, wow, I want to be a part of that. If they're like that, if they actually have that reality. And I think that's one of the reasons that the New Testament church grew like crazy. It was a wildfire. And it toppled the whole Roman Empire. And it took over the whole known world. It's because people were looking in and they're like, I want to be a part of that. I want to be in. But if the people who are called as people of God, the members, I think if they really take up all these, then that's going to happen. That people are going to look in at what's happening and be like, can I fit? You got a spot for me? I want to wait in line to get in, to be a part of your family, to be a part of your faith. And I want to tell those people, like, you're looking in as an outsider, like you can be a part of this as an insider. But we need work on this. Churches hurt each other. Churches hurt other people because we're not perfect. That's why we need to continue in forgiveness. That's why we need to continue to remind each other of the faith that we have through the death and resurrection of Jesus. We need to continually press the mission into our hearts.